Have you ever, walked away from a conversation, maybe just passing a colleague in the hallway or, I don't know, grabbing a coffee in the break room, and someone hands you what sounds exactly like a compliment?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. On paper, the words they used were entirely positive.
Yeah, completely positive.
But by the time you actually reach your desk, your stomach is just an absolute knot.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling.
You feel completely, utterly undermined, and you find yourself just staring at your monitor, kind of replaying this seemingly innocent sentence on a loop, thinking, wait a minute.
Did I just get insulted?
Exactly. Did I just get insulted?
It's a fundamentally universal human experience, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, we have all been on the receiving end of a sentence that, smiles warmly at us while simultaneously stepping hard on our toes.
Yes.
It just leaves you in this state of cognitive dissonance, really.
And I think the worst part is the feeling of being trapped by it, you can't call them out.
No, you can't.
Because if you turn around and say, hey, what did you mean by that? They just point to the literal words they use.
Right. They act completely innocent.
Yeah, and suddenly you look like the paranoid, overly sensitive one in the office.
Which is exactly their goal.
Well, that invisible psychological battlefield is exactly what we are exploring today on the Deep Dive.
It's going to be a good one.
We're looking at some really fascinating insights from a C2 level English listening session. This is specifically from a program called Pod Zone, led by instructors Emma and John.
And we should probably clarify what C2 actually represents before we get too far into the weeds.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Because under the European framework, C2 is the absolute highest echelon of language proficiency.
Like native level fluency, basically.
Beyond that, honestly.
Yeah.
It's not just about having a massive vocabulary.
Right.
It's not about knowing the most obscure synonyms, Mastery at this level means you are manipulating language to achieve highly specific psychological, emotional, and social outcomes.
Oh, I love how you phrased that.
Yeah, it's like you are playing chess while everyone else in the room is just playing checkers.
That distinction is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. To you listening right now, I really want you to know this isn't going to be some boring grammar lesson.
Definitely not.
No. We are using these advanced linguistic concepts as a window into the pure strategy of high-level human communication.
We're basically decoding human behavior.
Exactly. We're going to decode the subtle, sometimes manipulative art of subtext.
Yeah.
We'll figure out how to survive situations that are practically social minefields. And eventually, we're going to look at how to construct bulletproof arguments around massive, formless ideas.
Because it's really an exploration of how human beings actually interact out in the real world.
Right.
We are rarely direct creatures. Our communication is almost always layered, guarded and driven by hidden intentions.
So really treat this as a mental workout today.
Yeah, it gets deep.
The concepts we're dealing with today are dense. They require you to hold multiple, sometimes contradictory ideas in your head at the exact same time.
Which is not easy.
No. But if you feel your brain stretching a bit by the end of this, that just means it's working.
That's the goal.
So let's jump right in. Let's start with the absolute bedrock of this kind of communication, which is a concept Emma and John refer to as pragmatic meaning.
Pragmatic meaning, yes.
Now, I'll admit, when I first read that term in the source, it sounded a bit dry, like something out of a dusty linguistics textbook.
Well, it does sound academic, sure, but its application is entirely practical.
Okay, how so?
So to grasp pragmatic meaning, you really have to place it in direct opposition to literal meaning.
Right. Literal versus pragmatic.
Exactly. Literal meaning is just the dictionary definition of the words leaving your mouth.
The actual definition.
Yeah, is the raw data. It's what a very basic computer translation software sees.
Gotcha.
Pragmatic meaning, on the other hand, is the invisible layer.
Ooh, the invisible layer.
Yeah, it is what the speaker actually intends to communicate, but within a highly specific context.
Okay.
It is essentially the architecture of reading between the lines.
Give me a tangible example of that gap between the literal and the pragmatic.
Sure.
Because it feels like if I say, a dog is brown, the literal and pragmatic meanings are identical.
Right. In that specific case, yes, they are. But let's look at the workplace scenario that was highlighted in the Pod Zone session.
Oh, the ambitious project one.
Yes. So imagine you have spent the last 3 months pouring your absolute soul into an incredibly complex, highly detailed new project plan.
Oh man, I've been there. You're just exhausted.
Exactly. And you finally present it to a senior colleague.
Okay.
They take a long look at your slides. They lean back in their chair and they say, well, that's certainly ambitious.
Oh, my blood just ran cold hearing you say that.
Right. It stings.
It really does. See, to me, the literal language in this scenario operates exactly like a Trojan horse.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
The words themselves look like a shiny, beautiful gift. I mean, ambitious is a great word.
Usually, yes.
If you read the biographies of successful CEOs, they are all described as ambitious.
It's a highly sought after trait.
But there is a hidden army of judgment inside that wooden horse waiting to slaughter my project.
That is exactly what pragmatic meaning is.
But I have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Why is this considered a high-level communication skill? Honestly, to me, it just feels toxic. It feels cowardly, really. Why not just be direct and say what you actually mean?
Well, that is the essential question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why do we use this rhetorical device, which, by the way, is classically known as damning with faint praise, instead of just offering honest feedback?
Yeah, why do we do it?
You might view it as cowardly, but from an evolutionary and sociological standpoint, it's a survival mechanism.
A survival mechanism.
Yes. Directness, especially in a hierarchical environment like a big corporation, can be a form of social violence.
Wait, social violence? That seems a bit dramatic for, like, a Tuesday morning strategy meeting.
I know it sounds intense, but think about the actual mechanics of the interaction.
Sure.
If your colleague says, look, this plan is overly complicated, disjointed, and totally impossible to achieve,
Ouch.
right?
Yeah.
They've just initiated a direct conflict.
Yeah, that's true.
They have attacked your competence head on, and human ego naturally responds to direct attacks with defensiveness.
Defensiveness, anger, retaliation.
Exactly. The working relationship might be permanently damaged from that one exchange.
I'd probably never want to work with them again.
But by using pragmatic meaning, by damning with faint praise, they completely avoid the explosion.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. It's like they're dropping a bomb, but they're using a parachute so it lands softly.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it.
Wow.
They're offering a compliment that is so mild or so pointedly specific that it implies a massive critique. The pragmatic meaning, their actual real intention, is to signal to the rest of the room that your idea is a total fantasy.
But they achieve this without ever actually drawing their sword.
Exactly.
And the shield they use to protect themselves if I decide to fight back, well, that's plausible deniability.
Exactly. Plausible deniability is the key.
Yeah.
If you get defensive and demand to know why they hate your plan, they retreat instantly to the literal meaning of the word.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
They just throw their hands up and say,
Bleh.
I just called your plan ambitious.
Right, like, since when is ambition a bad thing?
And suddenly you look unhinged,
Yeah.
and they retain the high ground.
It's infuriatingly brilliant,
It is.
but there has to be a mechanism that triggers this, right? If the word ambitious is literally positive, how does everyone in the room suddenly know that it's pragmatically negative?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do we actually decode the Trojan horse?
The bridge between the literal compliment and the pragmatic insult is tone of voice.
Tone of voice.
And it's not just about sounding openly sarcastic.
Right.
It involves these tiny micro adjustments in pacing, pitch, and emphasis.
Okay, so it's the difference between an upbeat, rapid fire, wow, that's ambitious,
Right.
and a slow, drawn out, well, that's certainly ambitious.
Yes. Notice what you just did there with your voice.
Boy, slowed down.
You added pauses, you dropped the pitch significantly.
Right.
That auditory shift signals to the human brain that the word being spoken is no longer an observation of tries.
It's become a critique of realism.
Exactly. We process these acoustic signals faster than we process the actual vocabulary.
Wow.
We are constantly encrypting and decrypting these tiny auditory codes all day long without even realizing it.
Okay, so we've established that the workplace is essentially a psychological war zone
Right.
where we use pragmatic meaning to subtly destroy our colleagues' dreams.
That's one way to frame it, yes.
But we don't just use these linguistic shields at work, do we?
No, not at all.
Because if the corporate world requires plausible deniability, I feel like our personal lives require something slightly different, but arguably even more complex.
Oh, definitely. When we move away from the conference room and into our living rooms, the goal shifts entirely.
Okay, from what to what?
It shifts from subtle critique to what we can call linguistic diplomacy.
Linguistic diplomacy, I like that.
The objective isn't to undermine anymore. It is to preserve the social fabric at all costs.
Oh, man, that is so true.
It is the delicate, incredibly difficult art of avoiding a direct answer without actually crossing the line into outright lying.
This is honestly where I struggle the most.
It's hard.
It's the whole, does this outfit look good on me trap.
Yes, the classic trap.
Let's dig into the dinner party scenario from the pod session because I feel like this happens all the time.
Okay, let's do it.
So you are invited to a close friend's house for dinner.
Right.
They are incredibly excited to serve you a very unusual experimental dish that they spent all day cooking.
Okay, the stakes are high.
It's very high. You take a bite and it is a complete disaster.
Oh, wow.
It tastes like, I don't know, wet cardboard and black pepper.
Sounds awful.
But your friend is staring at you with these wide, hopeful eyes, and they ask, what do you think?
See, the stakes here are surprisingly high, like I said.
Yeah.
In a socially delicate situation like this, your primary goal isn't truth.
No.
It is the preservation of the relationship and the atmosphere of the entire evening.
Because if I say it's gross, the night is ruined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you deploy absolute literal truth and say, this is atrocious, I cannot physically swallow it.
You have shattered the evening.
You have insulted their effort, their taste, their hospitality, everything.
But if I look them in the eye and say, wow, this is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten, I'm just a liar.
Right.
Plus, there is a massive strategic risk there.
Which is?
If I tell them it's amazing, they are going to serve it to me every single time I come over for the next 10 years.
Oh, the ultimate self-inflicted punishment.
Exactly.
So how do you navigate this space between destroying the evening and committing to a decade of eating wet cardboard?
Tell me.
The masterstroke response, highlighted by Emma and John in the session, is this.
Okay.
Wow, I've never tasted anything quite like it.
I really want to break down the mechanics of that phrase because it is basically a verbal magic trick.
Let's analyze it clinically then.
Okay.
When you say, I have never tasted anything quite like it, what are you actually doing in that moment?
Well, I guess I am stating an absolute objective fact.
Right.
I have literally never tasted anything like it because no one in their right mind has ever combined these awful flavors before.
Precisely. You remain firmly anchored to the truth.
I'm not lying.
You are not lying. But the brilliance really lies in the pragmatic layer.
Okay.
You state the objective fact of the dish's uniqueness, but you deliberately leave an empty space at the end of the sentence.
An empty space.
Yes. You allow the listener, the hopeful, eager host, to fill in that blank with their own positive assumption.
Oh, wow.
They hear the word unique, and their ego automatically translates it into exceptional.
That is so smart. So I've successfully misdirected their attention.
Exactly.
I pointed them toward the novelty of the experience, completely bypassing any actual evaluation of the quality.
You survived the minefield.
But let me play the skeptic here for a second.
Sure.
What if the host doesn't take the bait? What if they push back and say, okay, sure, it's unique, but did you actually like it? Aren't these diplomatic phrases really just delaying the inevitable?
That's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
But here is the secret power of linguistic diplomacy.
Okay.
It establishes a firm boundary.
A boundary.
Yes. When you use a phrase like, I've never tasted anything quite like it, 99% of native speakers will intuitively understand the subtext.
And the subtext is?
The subtext is, I am choosing to be polite rather than honest. Please accept this gift of politeness and do not ask follow-up questions.
Oh, that is so layered.
It is. If a host pushes past that boundary and demands a direct evaluation, they are actually the ones committing the social faux pas.
Because they're forcing it.
Exactly. They are violating the unwritten contract of the polite interaction.
Wow. So I'm not just dodging the question.
No.
I'm politely telling them that the line of questioning is officially closed.
Exactly. You're shutting the door, but you're doing it with a smile.
I love that. I really want to put the listener in the hot seat for a second to actually test this boundary setting skill in real time.
The interactive exercise.
Yeah. Emma and John laid out this great interactive exercise, and I think we really need to try it.
It's a good one.
So to you listening, I want you to picture this. You are walking into your best friend's brand new apartment.
Okay.
They are beaming with pride. They want to show you the centerpiece of their living room, which is a massive painting they just dropped a huge amount of money on.
A lot of money.
They point to it, and it is objectively a total nightmare. The colors are violently clashing. The composition is completely chaotic. It literally looks like a stress headache painted on canvas.
It's aggressive.
And your friend turns to you, eyes glowing, and asks, what do you think?
See, the pressure in that room is immense
Immense.
because a piece of art is an extension of the person who bought it.
Right.
They aren't just asking if you like the paint on the canvas.
No,
They are asking if you validate their identity and their taste.
exactly. So you, the listener, take 3 seconds right now. Formulate the exact sentence you would use to escape this trap without hurting your friend and without betraying your own aesthetic morals.
Just think about it for a second. It is significantly harder than it seems when you are put on the spot.
It really is.
You don't want to lie, but you don't want to be mean.
Right. So let's see how your mental answer stacks up against the C2 level responses from the session.
Let's hear them.
The instructors offer 2 perfect escapes here. Option 1, it's a real statement piece.
Classic.
Option 2, it definitely brings a lot of energy to the room.
Now, let's deconstruct why these are so incredibly effective.
Okay.
Notice the vocabulary that is completely absent from both of those options.
Let me think. Well, there is no good, beautiful, gorgeous, or nice.
Exactly. None of those subjective value words.
Right.
Just like the dinner party, you are dealing strictly in objective realities.
Okay.
Calling it a statement piece simply acknowledges that the art is bold and aggressively draws the eye.
Which it does because it's so loud.
Right. And noting that it brings energy to the room acknowledges that it radically alters the physical aesthetic of the space.
Yeah.
Both of those statements are undeniably true about a chaotic, clashing painting.
So you are validating the object's impact without actually validating its beauty.
Exactly.
You are giving your friend exactly what they need, which is acknowledgement of their bold choice, without forcing yourself to endorse something you find genuinely hideous.
And crucially, you are protecting them from the phenomenon of buyer's remorse.
No, that's a really good point.
When someone makes a large, risky purchase like that, they're usually secretly terrified they made a mistake.
Oh, totally. I get that all the time.
Right. They seek out their friends to act as an emotional buttress.
To hold them up.
Yes. If you knock down that buttress with blunt honesty, you aren't just critiquing a canvas.
No.
You are inducing deep psychological regret in your friend.
Wow.
Linguistic diplomacy is the shock absorber that prevents that kind of relational damage.
It really makes you realize how blunt and unrefined our everyday default communication can be.
It's true.
Most of us just kind of blunder through these interactions, accidentally hurting feelings or telling clumsy lies.
All the time.
Mastering this invisible layer, it really feels like a superpower.
It absolutely is.
But as we move through this material, I'm noticing a pretty big shift in the source.
Oh.
Yeah, like navigating a bad meal or an ugly painting is one thing.
Sure.
We are dealing with concrete objects, things we can physically point to.
Right. Things that exist in the room.
But the pod session pushes us much further. What happens when the things we need to discuss don't exist in physical space?
Ah, yes. This is the critical leap from the concrete to the abstract.
Right.
It is a massive cognitive escalation.
How so?
Well, debating the merits of a loud painting requires tact, but debating the definition of justice or morality or freedom, that requires an entirely different architectural structure in your mind.
Because you can't just look at it.
Exactly. You can no longer rely on pointing at physical attributes. You have to build the entire concept out of words.
And the specific abstract concept Emma and John tackle is a word that practically dominates modern human existence.
Success.
Yes, success. And they start by breaking down what they call society's monolithic view of success.
I really want to focus on that word monolithic for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
A monolith, in a literal sense, is a massive, single, uniform block of stone.
Like Stonehenge.
Exactly like Stonehenge. Or the giant black slab in the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Oh yeah, great example.
When we apply that to sociology, saying society has a monolithic view of success means we treat it as this giant, unchanging, singular narrative that applies to everyone equally.
Right. And we all know exactly what that monolith looks like.
We really do.
From the time we are children, the checklist is just drilled into us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Accumulate capital, secure a job title with words like director or chief in it, buy property, and attain some level of public recognition or envy from your peers.
That's the script.
That is the monolithic script.
It is deeply ingrained, largely because it is a byproduct of post-industrial capitalism.
Right.
The system requires us to measure our worth in quantifiable metrics so that we continue to produce and consume.
Produce and consume.
Exactly. But what the C2 framework allows us to do is elevate our critique of this system by utilizing precise vocabulary.
Okay.
The instructors introduce 2 vital terms to dismantle the monolith: They define the conventional view as fundamentally materialistic, and they contrast it with the concept of intrinsic fulfillment.
I really want to chew on that contrast because I think people use the word materialistic incorrectly all the time.
Oh, constantly.
They just use it as a cheap insult for someone who likes shopping too much.
Right, like, oh, she's so materialistic.
Exactly. But it's deeper than that, isn't it? Materialistic versus intrinsic.
Vastly deeper. Materialistic, in a philosophical sense, refers to anything that is external, quantifiable, and dependent on external validation.
So numbers.
Yes, money is material.
Okay.
The square footage of your home is material. The number of direct reports you have at work is material.
Got it.
It is success measured by what you extract from the world.
What you extract.
Yes. Intrinsic fulfillment, however, is entirely internal.
Internal.
It is the deep, sustaining satisfaction that arises purely from the act of doing something, completely decoupled from any external reward, recognition, or financial gain.
To prove how subjective success really is, once you look past that material monolith, the session offers 3 distinct archetypes.
Yes, the archetypes.
I found these incredibly moving, honestly. Let's look at the first one, the artist.
Okay.
If we look at an artist through the monolithic lens, they are only successful if they sell out galleries and make millions of dollars.
Right, the commercial success.
But from an intrinsic perspective, success for an artist might simply be the translation of a pure, authentic emotion onto a canvas.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if that canvas sits in a dusty attic forever. The authenticity of the expression is the success.
Think of Vincent van Gogh.
Oh, perfect example.
By every materialistic, monolithic metric of his time, he was an abysmal failure.
He was completely broke.
He lived in poverty and sold almost nothing while he was alive. But intrinsically,
Intrinsically, he was brilliant.
he successfully translated his totally unique vision of the world into reality. The intrinsic fulfillment of creation completely superseded the materialistic reward of commerce.
The second archetype they explore is the parent. And this one is fascinating because parenting exists completely outside the capitalist structure of success.
It really does.
There is no salary for raising a good human being.
No annual bonuses.
No, you don't get a promotion to senior executive parent when your kid turns 10.
Right.
For a parent, the definition of success might be breaking a cycle of generational trauma or simply raising a child who is kind and well-adjusted.
Exactly.
The success is deeply relational, entirely internal, and pretty much invisible to the outside world.
And the third archetype pushes this even further into the abstract. The scientist.
Oh, I love this one.
A scientist might dedicate 40 years of their life sitting in a windowless lab, running the exact same experiments over and over again just to contribute one microscopic piece of data to the vast puzzle of human knowledge.
Just one tiny piece.
Yes. They might never become famous. They won't cure a disease all by themselves.
But their tiny piece of data allows someone else 50 years later to cure the disease.
Exactly.
Like Catalin Carrico, who researched mRNA technology for decades in total obscurity, constantly facing demotions and loss of funding because the materialistic world didn't see the value.
They couldn't monetize it immediately.
Right. But her intrinsic drive to understand the science ultimately paved the way for the COVID vaccines.
Exactly.
She moved the needle of human understanding forward by 1 millimeter.
And that is success. These 3 archetypes, the artist's authenticity, the parent's unseen labor, the scientist's obscure contribution, they completely shatter the monolith.
They really do.
They demonstrate that success is not a ladder you climb in front of an audience.
No.
It is a complex landscape that you must navigate using your own internal compass.
A landscape you navigate. That is a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
And it brings me to a phrase from the pod session that actually gave me pause. It felt almost tragic, honestly.
Great phrase.
They talk about the acute danger of being a, quote, success on paper, but feeling a profound sense of emptiness.
Oh, yeah. It is a devastating juxtaposition.
It really is.
And unfortunately, it is a very common modern affliction.
But this is why I find this kind of language study so vital.
How so?
If you only possess basic, literal vocabulary, you might look at your fancy car and your big house and think, I have everything. Why am I miserable?
Right, you can't articulate the problem.
Exactly. You just feel trapped by the emptiness because you can't name it. But when you acquire words like intrinsic, materialistic, and monolithic, language stops being just a descriptive tool.
It becomes something else.
It becomes a diagnostic tool.
Oh, I like that.
Having the right vocabulary actually allows us to diagnose our own discontent. You can say, oh, I am suffering because my success is entirely materialistic and I have neglected my intrinsic needs.
Yes.
The language gives you the power to articulate the trap, which is the very first step required to escape it.
That is a profound insight. Wittgenstein famously said, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world."
Wow, that's heavy.
It is. By expanding your vocabulary to handle these complex abstractions, you are literally expanding the boundaries of your internal world. You are giving yourself the cognitive tools to examine your own life.
So, keeping that exact thought in mind, I wanted to pass a challenge directly to you, the listener.
Okay, listener challenge time.
We just spent time deconstructing and diagnosing the monolith of success. Now it is your turn to build something new. Formulate your own cohesive argument about what success actually means to you personally.
However, there is a crucial caveat here.
What's the caveat?
The hallmark of advanced communication is structure.
Structure.
Do not simply generate a list. Do not say, well, success is having enough money, a nice family, and feeling happy.
Right.
That is a grocery list of desires.
Yeah.
It is not an argument. We want you to construct a sophisticated, multi-layered thought.
So how do they do that?
To help with this, try using a specific structural prompt provided in the session. Build your definition around this exact framework. While many people equate success with blank, I've come to believe it's more about blank.
While many people equate success with X, I've come to believe it's more about Y.
Exactly.
I genuinely love that architecture. Why is that specific framing so incredibly powerful?
Because it inherently creates contrast, which is the engine of any compelling argument.
Ah, contrast.
By starting with, while many people equate success with X, you are immediately demonstrating intellectual maturity.
How so?
You are signaling to your listener that you fully understand the conventional wisdom, the monolith, but you have thought deeply enough about the subject to evolve past it.
Right.
You're showing that you can hold an opposing idea in your mind, acknowledge its prevalence, and then confidently pivot to synthesize a new personal perspective.
So if you're listening right now, maybe pause the audio for a second. Actually fill in those blanks for yourself. What is your X and what is your Y?
Give it a try.
Maybe you'd say, while many people equate success with constant, exhausting upward mobility, I've come to believe it's more about achieving a fiercely protected, sustainable work-life balance.
Or perhaps, while many people equate success with a highly visible public legacy, I've come to believe it's more about the quiet, private quality of your daily relationships.
Whatever your personal truth is, the ability to wrap it in that kind of clear, persuasive architecture is the ultimate sign of communication mastery.
It is, but having the architectural blueprint is really only half the battle.
Okay, what's the other half?
To build the house, you need the right materials. If you rely on overly formal academic words to express these ideas, you end up sounding like a textbook, which alienates your listener.
You sound like a robot.
Right. To articulate complex, abstract arguments smoothly and naturally, a speaker needs to master the native speaker's toolkit.
The toolkit.
Yes, idioms and collocations.
Let's do a quick definition check for anyone who doesn't spend their weekends reading grammar forums. What exactly is a collocation and why does it matter?
Simply put, a collocation is a sequence of words that co-occur more often than would be expected by statistical chance.
Okay, break that down for me.
They are words that have naturally glued together in the collective mind of native speakers over centuries.
You mean example?
For instance, we say heavy rain, not thick rain or dense rain.
Oh, right. Thick rain sounds weird.
Even though the literal meaning of thick rain makes total sense, it sounds completely wrong to a native ear.
Yeah, it really does.
Mastering these natural pairings, along with idioms, which are phrases where the meaning cannot be deduced from the individual words, is the secret sauce that makes your speech flow. It masks the effort of your intellect.
Emma and John highlighted a specific toolkit of 4 highly advanced, deeply useful phrases. And I don't want to just list them off.
Now let's dig into them.
I want us to really unpack the imagery, the history, and the psychological utility of each one. Because these aren't just phrases, they are conversational tactics.
They really are tactics.
Let's start with a classic, to play devil's advocate.
The definition here is to argue against an idea specifically for the sake of debate, to test the strength of an argument, rather than because you actually hold that opposing view.
The example used in the session is a classic boardroom scenario. I agree with the marketing plan, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment. What if our main competitor launches their product first?
It's a very common usage.
I want to talk about the origin of this because it actually explains why it works so well.
Oh, the historical origin, yes.
The advocatus diaboli was a real position in the Catholic Church, established back in the 1500s.
A real job title.
Yeah. When they were deciding whether to make someone a saint, they appointed a specific guy, the devil's advocate, whose literal job was to find flaws in the person's character, to argue against their canonization.
That historical context perfectly illustrates its modern utility.
It does, right?
The church realized that if everyone is just agreeing that a person is a saint,
Yeah.
they might make a mistake due to groupthink.
Everyone just nodding along.
Right. They needed a mechanism to stress test the decision without the person raising the objections, being accused of hating the potential saint.
And that translates exactly to the modern meeting room.
It does.
If everyone is cheering for a new strategy and you just say, this might fail because the competitor is faster, you instantly become the villain.
You're the rain on the parade.
You sound pessimistic or contrarian, or like you just aren't a team player. But by prefacing it with, let me play devil's advocate, what are you psychologically doing to the room?
You are creating a psychological safe space for disagreement.
A safe space.
By invoking the idiom, you are explicitly separating your personal identity from the critique you're about to deliver.
Wow.
You are essentially telling the room, I am putting on a temporary mask. I am playing a role for the benefit of the group to ensure our armor holds.
That is so smart.
It completely neutralizes the personal friction that usually accompanies disagreement. It is a brilliant diffusing mechanism.
You're asking permission to be the bad guy for exactly 60 seconds, and everyone grants it because you asked nicely.
Exactly.
It's a cheat code for critical thinking.
Okay, the next tactical phrase, a double-edged sword.
This idiom refers to a situation, a decision, or a tool that has both significant positive and significant negative consequences simultaneously.
The scenario they provided was, fame is a double-edged sword. It brings incredible wealth, but it completely eradicates your privacy. A very true statement.
When I hear this phrase, I just marvel at its pure economic efficiency. Think about the heavy lifting those three words are doing. Instantly, you communicate a complex, nuanced duality of risk and reward.
It is highly effective because it relies on visceral kinetic imagery.
Kinetic imagery.
It evokes the physics of a specific weapon. A sword with two edges can easily cut your enemy on the forward swing, but if you aren't careful, the momentum of the backswing will slice right into you.
Oh, wow. I never visualized the backswing before.
It immediately signals to your listener that the topic at hand is not black and white, and that the benefits cannot be cleanly separated from the costs.
It is the perfect tool for discussing modern abstractions. You can't just say artificial intelligence is good or AI is bad.
No, it's too complex.
It is a double-edged sword. It cures diseases and displaces workers. The phrase forces the conversation into a space of nuance.
Exactly.
Let's move to the third piece of the toolkit, which I think is the most aggressive yet polite phrase we have. To have a vested interest.
This means to have a strong personal reason for being involved in the situation, almost always because you will gain a significant financial, political, or deeply personal advantage from a specific outcome.
The example given is perfect. Of course, the landlord supports the new neighborhood development plan. He has a vested interest in property values increasing.
Right.
Why is this phrase absolutely essential when you are engaging in high-level critical thinking or debate?
Because nobody operates in a vacuum. And true critical thinking requires you to interrogate the motivations of the speakers, not just the words they are saying.
You have to know why they're saying it.
However, directly accusing someone of having impure motives is a really fast way to start a screening match.
Right. If I stand up in a town hall meeting and point at the landlord and yell, "You don't care about the neighborhood, you're just a greedy guy who wants to get rich,"
It's over.
I have lost the moral high ground. The landlord gets defensive, his brain goes into fight or flight mode, and the analytical conversation is completely over.
But observe the mechanism of power when you use the phrase vested interest.
Okay.
You are using clinical, almost economic terminology. Vested originally comes from property law, referring to a secured right to an asset.
Oh, I didn't know that.
By using this clinical phrasing, you are forcing the subject to remain in an analytical headspace. You effectively neutralize their emotional defense mechanisms while simultaneously completely undermining their bias in front of everyone else.
It is a surgical strike.
Very surgical.
You state the undeniable fact of their financial involvement without ever uttering a subjective insult like greedy. It is the ultimate diplomatic shield for an attack.
It really is.
Finally, the fourth piece of our toolkit: to be at a crossroads.
This describes being at a critical juncture in your life, your career, or a project where a highly consequential decision must be made, and the path you choose will permanently alter your trajectory.
The example is universally relatable. After finishing her PhD, she was at a crossroads. Should she pursue a career in academia or move into the private sector?
What makes this idiom resonate so deeply is that it taps into a primal human anxiety.
Primal anxiety.
It evokes the physical sensation of standing at an intersection in a dark wood, to borrow from Robert Frost.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood.
Exactly. You can only choose one path, and the agonizing part of a true crossroads is the knowledge that once you walk down one path, the other path disappears forever.
That is heavy.
It captures the gravity and the existential weight of a major life choice, far better than just saying, well, she had to make a tough decision.
So we have these four powerful conversational tactics: playing devil's advocate to stress test ideas, a double-edged sword to explain dual consequences, having a vested interest to surgically expose bias, and being at a crossroads to describe existential choices.
A very solid toolkit.
But knowing the definitions is just trivia. The real magic, as Emma and John demonstrate, happens when you weave them together.
Let's examine the master synthesis they provide. They outline a scenario about a professional facing a major life dilemma. He has been offered a massive promotion, but it requires moving across the country, away from all his family and friends.
The synthesis they use to describe his situation goes like this. He's clearly at a crossroads. The promotion is incredibly tempting, but leaving his entire support system behind is the other side of that double-edged sword.
Just listen to the rhythm, the flow, and the depth of that short description.
It's so smooth.
By seamlessly weaving those two idioms together, the speaker creates a rich, highly sophisticated, and incredibly natural-sounding narrative picture.
You don't just understand his problem, you feel the emotional weight of it.
You really do.
You feel the paralyzing gravity of standing at the crossroads, and you feel the sharp danger of the double-edged sword waiting for him in the new city. It doesn't sound like someone reading from a C2 vocabulary list. It sounds like someone who deeply, profoundly understands the complexities of the human condition and possesses the exact right words to express it.
And that, ultimately, is the zenith of language mastery. It is not just about achieving grammatical accuracy.
No.
It is about achieving human resonance.
This has been an absolutely incredible journey through the hidden layers of how we interact.
It really has.
We started by decoding the treacherous, passive-aggressive waters of the workplace, learning how pragmatic meaning and tone of voice turn compliments into critiques.
The Trojan horse.
Exactly. We figured out how to survive the high-wire act of dinner parties and hideous living room art using the boundary-setting power of linguistic diplomacy.
Statement pieces.
Right. We philosophized about the true nature of success, dismantling the materialistic monolith to find our own intrinsic fulfillment.
Right.
And finally, we armed ourselves with a native speaker's toolkit of advanced idioms to articulate these massive ideas smoothly.
It is a tremendous amount of cognitive processing. If your brain feels fatigued right now, take it as a badge of honor. You've successfully stretched your intellectual muscles.
Absolutely. The world of ideas truly does crack wide open when you possess the precise language needed to explore it. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's a challenge posed at the very end of the PodZone session, but I want to elevate it for you based on everything we've just discussed. The question is deceptively simple. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom. Perhaps the most intensely debated abstract concept in human history.
Exactly. So, to you listening, do not just answer that question with a basic dictionary definition. I want you to use your new architectural tools.
Click into work.
How would you define freedom in a way that incorporates the idea of a double-edged sword? Does total freedom come with a cost to your security?
That's a great question.
And how might your definition of freedom change if you stop and consider who in our society has a vested interest in keeping you perfectly comfortable rather than truly free?
That is a brilliant, highly advanced application of the concepts. It forces the mind to look past the literal, patriotic definitions of freedom and critically examine its pragmatic reality in our daily lives.
So take that thought with you. Mull it over on your commute or while you make dinner, and the next time a colleague leans over your desk and tells you that your ideas are certainly ambitious, you will know exactly what they mean.
You'll be ready.
And more importantly, you will know exactly how to smile, offer to play devil's advocate, and keep building your project anyway.
Think about the last time you were actively losing an argument.
Oh man, that is not a fun feeling.
Right. It's the worst. Your heart is racing a little bit, and you know for an absolute fact that you have all the data on your side.
Yeah, you've done the reading, you have the spreadsheets.
Exactly. But somehow the other person is they are completely controlling the entire room.
And you're just sitting there wondering what is going wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, what if I told you that the reason you lost wasn't because your facts are wrong, but because you absolutely refused to tell your opponent that they were right?
Which sounds completely backwards, I know.
It really does. But welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a stack of your sources, articles, research, your own notes, and we extract the most important nuggets of knowledge or insight.
It's basically your shortcut to being well-informed.
Yeah, exactly. And today, we are looking at a really fascinating stack of material. It's derived from an advanced, a C2 level English communication training session.
Right, the highest level of fluency testing.
Yeah, but the mission of this deep dive goes way, way beyond just, language proficiency.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't about grammar.
No, not at all. We're looking at the actual architecture of advanced communication. We're breaking down how you move from just being a fluent participant in a conversation to, becoming a powerful force who actively shapes it.
Which is a transition that most people, even incredibly intelligent people, they never actually make.
Really? Why do you think that is?
Well, think about it. We spend so much of our lives optimizing how we ingest information, right?
Oh, totally. We're obsessed with it.
Yeah, you read the books, you listen to the analyses, you understand all the nuances, but we spend a fraction of that time figuring out how to actually deploy that information.
Huh. That's a really good point. We just sort of assume it'll happen naturally.
Exactly. There is this assumption that if we just possess the facts, the persuasion will naturally follow. Like magic.
Right, I'm right, so obviously everyone will agree with me.
Yes. But looking through the framework we're analyzing today, that assumption is just a fundamental misunderstanding of how human beings actually communicate.
It's not about what you know.
No. It is entirely about how you construct what you know.
And constructing it is, frankly, really hard work.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. The material we're diving into today, it establishes this really stark difference between simply understanding arguments and actually building them in real time.
Building them on the fly.
Right. It points out that advanced communication requires moving way beyond just grasping the subtext of a room or, dropping in a few high-level vocabulary words to sound smart.
Yeah, anyone can memorize a vocabulary list.
Exactly. You have to step into a space where you are the one dictating the trajectory of the conversation. And I was trying to wrap my head around why this is so difficult. And it almost feels like, it's like the difference between playing a casual game of tennis versus sitting down for a competitive match of chess.
Oh, I like that. Let's pull that apart a bit. Where do you see the disconnect between the two?
Well, think about standard communication, just regular talking. In tennis, someone hits a point at you, and your only job is to react.
Right, you just swing.
Yeah, you're just trying to get your racket on the ball and hit it back over the net. You're basically just surviving the rally. You say a point, I say a point.
Back and forth, back and forth.
Right. But advanced communication, this active architecture we're talking about, is chess. You aren't just reacting to the piece right in front of you.
No, you're planning.
Exactly. You are supposed to be positioning your pieces 3 moves ahead to control the entire board. You are dictating where the game is played rather than just returning a serve.
It is actually a very revealing comparison because it highlights the underlying neurology of what is happening in our brains.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, fluency, whether it is fluency in a language or just fluency in a specific field of study, like engineering or marketing, it's largely passive.
Passive.
It means you possess the vocabulary to describe a situation. When you are just volleying that tennis ball back, you are relying on instinct. You are relying on muscle memory.
Oh, I see. You don't have to think too hard about the individual swing.
Right. But persuasion. Persuasion is active architecture. When you transition to playing chess in a conversation, you have to hold multiple potential futures in your mind simultaneously.
Which Honestly, that sounds absolutely exhausting.
Because it creates a massive cognitive load.
Yep.
This is why the training materials emphasize that true growth in this area happens at the extreme edge of our comfort zone.
Yeah, it's not a comfortable place to be.
It is deeply uncomfortable to consciously construct arguments rather than just speaking from the gut.
Because your gut is just trying to hit the tennis ball.
Exactly. To shape a conversation, you need immense situational awareness. Think about what your brain has to process in real time.
Okay, lay it on me.
You have to monitor the logic of your own points, obviously.
Sure, baseline stuff.
But you also have to monitor your opponent's emotional state.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You have to anticipate their counter-arguments before they even make them, and you have to structure your sentences in a way that traps them into agreeing with you.
That is a lot of mental tabs open at once.
It's a ton. It strips away the comfortable, easy flow of just saying what you think and forces you to become the active director of the dialogue.
And to start playing chess instead of tennis, you have to understand what might be like the most counterintuitive move on the board.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to learn how to give up ground in order to win the game. Which brings us to the first major tactical tool we need to unpack today, which is the tactical empathy of concession.
This concept completely upends how most of us approach debates. Completely flips it.
Yeah, the source material was really strong on this.
There is a primary foundational mistake that people make when they feel challenged. It's the belief that you must aggressively reject absolutely everything the opposition says.
Right. The instinct is to build an impenetrable fortress. Like, if you and I are arguing and you say the sky's blue, my immediate instinct is to argue that it's actually, azure or cerulean.
Right. Just disagreeing for the sake of it.
Yeah, just to avoid giving you a single inch of territory. Because if I agree with you on literally anything, I feel like I'm losing.
That is the fight or flight response taking over your rhetoric.
The fight or flight response over an argument.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
When we feel threatened intellectually, our amygdala kicks in, and we view any agreement as a physical vulnerability.
That's wild. Our brains literally think we're being attacked by a tiger, but it's just a guy named Dave from accounting.
Exactly. But the antidote to that defensive fortress mentality is concession.
Concession, okay.
Concession is the act of deliberately acknowledging a valid point made by the other side. But we need to look at the underlying psychology here, because conceding doesn't mean surrendering.
Which is the hardest part to wrap your head around.
It is, but in fact, it achieves two very specific strategic goals. First, it demonstrates to the room that you are a reasonable, analytical thinker.
Because you can recognize reality.
Yes. And second, it refines the debate by stripping away all the useless noise.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Please do.
Because in practice, doesn't conceding a point fundamentally give the other side ammunition?
How do you mean?
Well, if I am in a high-stakes meeting, right, and my department's budget is on the line, and I look across the table and say, you know what, Dave, you are right about that flaw in my proposal.
Okay, yeah.
Aren't I just doing his work for him? I feel like I'm handing him the knife to stab my own argument.
It absolutely feels that way in the moment, but you are confusing concession with capitulation.
Okay, what's the difference?
Capitulation is saying, you are right, therefore I am wrong. You're giving up.
Right, and concession.
Concession is a pivot. When you concede strategically, you are saying, yes, that specific part of your argument is entirely true, but it does not invalidate my overall position because of this other more important factor.
Oh, so it isn't about right versus wrong at all.
No.
It's about shifting the weight of the argument.
It is entirely about controlling the scale of importance. Let's go back to your instinct to build a fortress, your fight or flight reaction.
My cerulean sky defense.
Exactly. If you refuse to concede an obvious truth, if there's an obvious flaw in your proposal and you stubbornly deny it, you instantly look weak.
Because everyone else can see the flaw.
Right. You look defensive, and worse, you look dogmatic. The audience, whether it's a boardroom or just a dinner table with your family, they stop trusting your judgment because you are actively denying reality.
Wow. Yeah, you lose all credibility over one small point.
But when you concede the point, you signal a supreme level of confidence.
Because you weren't afraid of the truth.
You are looking at the room and implicitly saying, I am so incredibly secure in my overarching thesis that I can openly acknowledge where my opponent is right, and it still doesn't defeat me.
That reframes it entirely. You aren't handing them a knife. You are taking their knife, inspecting it, agreeing that it's sharp, and then just setting it aside because you brought a much bigger sword.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the dynamic. You accept reality, and then you contextualize it entirely on your own terms.
Well, this is where the notes we were reviewing get highly tactical. The training material, it doesn't just tell us to concede, it provides a literal phraseology masterclass on exactly how to do it.
Yes, the specific vocabulary is crucial here.
We have this whole arsenal of yielding, and I want to spend some real time dissecting these phrases because the subtle psychological differences between them are massive.
They really are. It changes the whole tone of the room.
Yeah, it's not just about what you say, it's the posture you take when you say it. So let's look at the first phrase on the list. It's, admittedly, your point about the initial costs is valid.
The operative word there is admittedly.
Okay, break that down for me.
Look at the internal framing of that word. When you say admittedly, it feels like a confession of an internal realization.
A confession.
Yeah. It sounds as though you have been wrestling with the data in your own mind, and the sheer brilliance of their argument has forced you to admit this truth out loud.
Oh, wow. It's almost flattering.
It is deeply flattering. It strokes their ego, but it keeps you in total control of the narrative.
Because you're the one deciding to admit it.
Exactly. You are validating their intelligence, which completely lowers their defenses while smoothly setting up your next move.
That's sneaky. I love it. Okay, let's contrast that with the second phrase, which is, I'll grant you that the timeline is ambitious.
How does that one feel to you?
Now, to my ear, this one feels completely different. It feels a little more, I don't know, royal.
Royal. That's an interesting word for it.
Yeah, like, I have surveyed my vast kingdom of facts, and I shall grant you this one tiny parcel of land.
It doesn't sound like a confession at all. You are absolutely picking up on the power dynamic there. I'll grant you, establishes a very subtle hierarchy.
How so?
You are positioning yourself as the arbiter of truth. You are the one with the authority to dispense validation to the other person.
Okay. So it is a slight flex.
It's definitely a flex. You are giving them the point, but you are reminding them that you hold the power to give it. It is incredibly effective when you are dealing with someone who is being overly aggressive because it asserts dominance without being hostile.
You're putting them in their place by agreeing with them. That is wild.
It's very advanced.
That makes a lot of sense. Then we move to the third phrase in the source material. It's true that there are some drawbacks, however.
Okay, analyze this one.
Well, this one feels very detached to me. Very objective.
Yes, and that detachment is highly strategic. When you say, it's true that, you are pointing to a fact in the room that is separate from both of you.
Oh, I see.
Notice that it removes the personal pronouns entirely. It isn't, I grant you, or you are right. It is simply, it is true.
You are depersonalizing the conflict.
Exactly. This is the phrase you use when the debate is getting way too heated and you need to cool the emotional temperature of the room. You focus everyone back on the objective reality, away from the personal egos.
That's a great de-escalation tool. But then look at the fourth one, which goes in the exact opposite direction. The phrase is, I take your point about the environmental impact.
I love this one because it is so incredibly interpersonal.
It is highly interpersonal. I take your point.
Yeah.
Is brilliant.
Right.
Because you aren't just validating the data, you are validating the human being sitting across from you.
It almost feels like you are physically accepting an object from them. Like they handed you a heavy box and you looked at it and said, yeah, I'll take that.
That physical metaphor is exactly what is happening psychologically. You are receiving their thought. And this is incredibly effective at de-escalating a situation in a different way.
By making them feel heard. Yes. When someone feels heard, truly received, their biological fight or flight response starts to deactivate. They stop viewing you as a threat to be destroyed, and they start viewing you as a partner in a dialogue. You are pacifying them through active reception.
Wow. Okay, then we get to the final phrase, which the notes emphasize is a bit of a powerhouse. While I concede that the public is skeptical, the data is irrefutable.
This is the most structural phrase in the entire arsenal. Let's unpack the grammar here without getting too academic about it.
Right, keep it simple.
By starting the sentence with the word while, you're creating a grammatical loaded spring.
A loaded spring. I like that. What does that mean?
Think about what happens in the listener's brain when you start a sentence with, while I concede that. Subconsciously, the listener's brain is holding its breath.
Because they know a but or something similar is coming.
Exactly. They know grammatically that the other shoe has to drop. You have set up a tension that must be resolved by a counterstrike in the second half of the sentence.
It's like you're pulling back the string on a bow. The listener knows The arrow's going to fly the moment you finish conceding.
Precisely. It is a highly aggressive form of concession. You are validating their point, sure, but you're wrapping it in a structure that immediately diminishes it in favor of your own conclusion.
Looking at all 5 of these phrases,
Yeah.
From the flattery of admittedly to the loaded spring of while I concede, my big takeaway is that these act like verbal shock absorbers.
Shock absorbers. Elaborate on that.
Well, if we are in an argument and you throw a heavy aggressive point at me and I just block it with a hard flat no, the impact shatters the conversation.
Right, it's a collision.
Yeah, we break the axle, it just turns into a shouting match. But if I catch your point with an admittedly, or an I take your point, I compress the suspension of the conversation. I absorb the kinetic energy out of your attack.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
You feel the satisfaction of having landed a blow, but because of the shock absorber, my vehicle hasn't been thrown off course at all. I just absorbed your energy and then seamlessly accelerate into my counterargument.
That is the exact mechanical function of tactical empathy. You are using their momentum rather than fighting it. But theory only gets us so far, right?
Always.
We need to look at how this material applies these linguistic tools to a real-world, highly debated topic. Let's look at the case study on the 4-day workweek.
Okay, let's set the stage for this. Imagine we are in a debate, and the opponent comes out swinging against the 4-day workweek. They argue 2 specific things. It will cause a massive loss of productivity, and implementing it will be a, quote, logistical nightmare.
A very common argument.
Right. Now, a novice debater would just yell, no, it won't. Productivity will be fine, and logistics are easy.
Playing tennis?
Right. But the framework provides a model counter-argument using concession. It goes like this. Admittedly, the initial implementation could present some logistical challenges for certain industries. However, studies have consistently shown that a 4-day week leads to increased employee focus and reduced burnout, ultimately boosting productivity and talent retention in the long run.
If we deconstruct this response, it is a masterclass in timeline manipulation.
Timeline manipulation.
Yes. Look at what is actually being conceded here. It is incredibly surgical.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
They only concede the short-term pain. They specifically say initial implementation.
Right. And they quarantine that pain to a very specific area, certain industries.
They don't agree that it's a universal nightmare for everyone forever.
Exactly. They acknowledge the logistical challenge, but they shrink it down to a temporary, localized problem. They put it in a tiny box, and once it's in that box, they pivot to protect their long-term thesis.
By shifting the timeline to the future, ultimately boosting productivity in the long run.
The genius here is that the speaker did not deny the opponent's reality.
They didn't lie.
They didn't lie and say there won't be logistical nightmares. There will be. But by mapping the opponent's point to the short term and mapping their own point to the long term, they have demonstrated that their argument encompasses and supersedes the opponent's argument.
It makes the opponent look a bit short-sighted.
It does.
And the mechanical hinge of that entire maneuver is the word however. It's the pivot point. And this got me thinking, what happens if a speaker gets nervous?
Like they freeze up.
Yeah, say they are in a high-pressure meeting, they start playing tennis instead of chess, they forget the hinge, and they just leave the concession hanging.
Oh, no.
What if they just look at the boss and say, admittedly, the initial implementation could present some logistical challenges for certain industries, and then they just stop talking?
Then they have committed a catastrophic structural failure.
Catastrophic.
Absolutely. If you leave a concession hanging without the hinge and the pivot, you haven't absorbed the blow. You've just punched yourself in the face.
You just surrendered.
You have completely validated their argument and provided absolutely no counterweight. You just told the room, my opponent is right, this is going to be a nightmare.
Wow.
The word however, or but, or nevertheless, is the critical lever that redirects the momentum of the conversation. Without the lever, you just absorb the damage.
So when executing correctly,
Yeah.
Concession, hinge, pivot, what does this signal to the people listening? Because the training material notes that this specific structural maneuver makes a position sound, quote, more balanced and well-reasoned. But why does it sound that way?
Because it alters your perceived role in the room.
My role.
Yes. When you acknowledge the downside and pivot to the upside, you signal to the audience that you have weighed all the variables, not just the ones that support your side.
Oh, you look like the adult in the room.
You are presenting yourself as the judge of the debate rather than just one of the combatants. You have looked at their evidence, you have looked at your evidence, you have balanced the scales, and you have issued a ruling.
That's a huge shift in authority.
It elevates you to a position of immense rhetorical authority. People instinctively trust someone who can argue against their own point.
Okay, so concession is our defensive shield.
Right.
It levels the playing field, it disarms the opponent, and it builds trust.
Correct.
But you can't win a chess match just by playing defense.
No, you can't.
We can't just absorb blows forever. Eventually, you have to go on the offensive and actively steer their mind where you want it to go. And the way to do that is to stop making declarative statements and start asking questions.
Yes.
Which brings us to the offensive frame, persuasion via rhetorical questions.
A rhetorical question is often deeply misunderstood. Most people think of it as just a stylistic flourish, a bit of poetry.
Shakespeare or something.
Exactly. But in advanced communication, it is a highly tactical tool. It is a question asked not to extract an answer from the other person, but to make a point, to provoke a specific thought process, or to forcibly lead the listener to a very particular conclusion.
The framework breaks down two distinct functions for this. Function one is emphasizing a point. The example provided is, do you seriously think that's a sustainable solution?
Right.
And function two is creating shared agreement. The example there is, after all, isn't that what we all want at the end of the day?
Yes.
But I want to dig into the biology of this. What is actually happening in our brains when we hear a question versus a statement? Why is, do you seriously think that's sustainable, so much more effective than just looking at someone and saying, that is not sustainable?
To understand that, we have to look at the cognitive loop associated with problem solving. Our brains are fundamentally evolutionarily hardwired to answer questions.
Really? Hardwired?
It is an involuntary reflex. If I make a declarative statement to you, if I just say, that is not sustainable, your brain can passively evaluate it. You can agree, you can disagree, or you can just ignore it entirely.
Right. It's just information floating out there.
A statement is external to you. You can build a wall against it. But the moment I ask a question, the grammar itself creates a cognitive itch.
A cognitive itch.
Yes. Your brain cannot help but involuntarily search its own database for the answer.
It forces participation. You can't just passively listen to a question.
Exactly. Even if you don't answer out loud, your brain is firing. When you ask a rhetorical question, you force the listener's brain to do the heavy lifting of arriving at your conclusion.
That's incredibly powerful.
You aren't handing them a prepackaged opinion. You are forcing them to generate your opinion inside their own head. And this is the absolute secret to deep persuasion. People are far less likely to argue with a conclusion that their own brain just provided.
It's like a rhetorical Trojan horse.
Oh, expand on that.
Well, if I make a statement, I am trying to force my argument through your defensive gates with a battering ram. And obviously, you will fight back.
Right, walls go up.
But if I ask a rhetorical question, I am leaving a beautifully crafted wooden horse right outside your walls. You can't help yourself. Your brain's reflex kicks in, you open the gates, you bring the question into your own mind to answer it, and boom, my argument is suddenly inside your fortress. And you think you brought it there yourself.
That is exactly how it functions. Beautifully put. But to take that Trojan horse idea further, if you build a horse that looks threatening, they won't let it in.
Obviously not.
The wording of the question has to be perfectly camouflaged. It has to be calibrated to their internal values. To see this camouflage in action, let's look at the case study the training materials provide on elevating an argument. The topic is public arts funding.
Okay, let's look at the contrast they set up. They start with a standard flat statement, a classic tennis swing. The statement is, the arts are important for our culture. Now, there's nothing factually wrong with that. It's fine. It's accurate. But it is completely forgettable.
Very flat.
Then, the framework transforms that exact same thought into two powerful rhetorical questions advocating for public arts funding. First, what kind of society would we be without art, music, and literature to challenge and inspire us?
A huge upgrade.
Right. And second, are we really willing to let our cultural heritage wither away for the sake of minor budget cuts?
The transformation from the flat statement to those questions is staggering, and we need to impartially examine how they achieve emotional resonance.
You don't do it.
The original statement, the arts are important, is incredibly easy to dismiss. If you are in a city council meeting and you say, the arts are important, the person across the table can just say, sure, but fixing the potholes is more important.
End of debate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You made a statement, they made a counter statement.
But the rhetorical questions completely obliterate that standard battlefield. They raise the stakes to an existential level. What kind of society would we be? Suddenly, we aren't talking about a line item on a municipal budget anymore. We are talking about our collective identity. You are forcing the listener to picture a dystopian society devoid of music and literature, and then asking them if they want to live there.
And it introduces a profound moral framing. Look closely at the vocabulary in that second question. You have cultural heritage withering away, placed directly against minor budget cuts.
Right, on the same scale.
By putting those two concepts on a scale inside a question, the speaker is forcing the listener to evaluate their own moral priorities. It's no longer about spreadsheets. It's about whether you are the kind of villain who would let heritage wither for a few pennies.
So let me ask you this, because reading that second question, are we really willing to let our cultural heritage wither away? There is a risk here, isn't there?
A huge risk.
How does a speaker balance this emotional resonance without crossing over into just theatrical exaggeration? Because if I use that kind of language in the wrong room, I'm going to sound like a melodramatic theater kid giving a monologue.
You've hit on the most dangerous aspect of this tool. The effectiveness of a rhetorical question depends entirely on calibration.
Calibration, meaning reading the room.
Yes. You have to match the emotional weight of your question to the context of the room. If you are in a sterile, low-stakes budget meeting about ordering office supplies, and you ask, are we really willing to let our administrative heritage wither away for the sake of cheaper paper clips?
Right, people are just going to laugh at you.
You will look utterly ridiculous, the melodrama backfires, and you lose all credibility.
You brought an existential crisis to a Staples order.
Exactly. But if you are debating fundamental civic values like public funding for a library or healthcare policies or education, the existential framing is appropriate. The art of the rhetorical question isn't just writing a good sentence, it's calibrating the stakes to match the gravity of the room.
All right, so let's take inventory. We have explored the defensive shock absorber of tactical concession. We have explored the offensive Trojan horse of the rhetorical question.
We have our tools.
Now, the material we are reviewing throws down the ultimate gauntlet. It challenges us to combine both of these tools in a high-stakes, highly nuanced societal debate. This is the synthesis challenge.
If we really want to pressure test these techniques, we need a topic that is incredibly messy. We need a topic where both sides have legitimate points.
No clear right or wrong.
Exactly. The training module uses the gig economy as the ultimate test case for these C2 level communication skills. For clarity, they define the gig economy as the rise of short-term freelance work as opposed to traditional W-2 employment. We are talking about Uber drivers, freelance writers, food delivery couriers, independent contractors.
And we are going to impartially map out the landscape provided by the notes because it presents this as a perfectly split issue.
It's very gray.
Let's look at the proponent's view first. The argument for the gig economy is that it offers unparalleled flexibility. The key word used here is that it empowers individuals. It allows a college student or a single parent to be their own boss, to turn an app on and work entirely on their own terms. And on the flip side, it is undeniably convenient for consumers.
Conversely, we have to look at the critic's view as outlined in the text. The key word they use is precarity.
Precarity, okay.
The argument against the gig economy focuses on the fact that this system strips away the foundational safety nets of traditional employment. We are talking about a lack of health insurance, no paid sick leave, no retirement matching. Critics argue that this creates a race to the bottom where workers are essentially forced to accept lower and lower pay with zero security just to survive.
So we have a very clear dichotomy. We have empowerment, flexibility, and convenience on one side, and we have precarity, instability, and exploitation on the other.
Which is precisely why this is labeled a double-edged sword. And this brings us to a vital insight about advanced communication. It absolutely thrives in the gray areas.
Why is that? I mean, why not just pick a side and hammer it?
Because black and white topics don't require sophisticated architecture. If you and I are debating whether the Earth is round or flat, I don't need to use tactical concession.
Right.
I don't need to validate your feelings about a flat Earth. I just need to point to a satellite photo. The truth is binary. But complex societal trends like the gig economy demand advanced communication because both sides hold undeniable truths.
It's true that the single parent can make rent by driving on a Tuesday night.
Yes, and it is equally true that a full-time courier might not be able to afford insulin because they are classified as an independent contractor.
That's heavy.
When opposing realities are both demonstrably true, The speaker who can navigate the gray area, the speaker who can hold both truths in their hand at the same time, is the one who ultimately controls the room.
But that is a massive tightrope walk. You have to hold two wildly opposing realities in a single argument without sounding totally contradictory or wishy-washy. You have the vivid vocabulary of empowerment pulling you to the right and precarity pulling you to the left. How do you merge them without just confusing everyone?
You stop right there. Let's look at the opening. While I concede that, we instantly have our structural concession acting as the ultimate shock absorber.
Right, the loaded spring.
They are immediately, right out of the gate, validating the proponent's strongest possible point. Flexibility is undeniably attractive. But look at the pivot. They don't just use however and make a boring statement. They pivot directly into the rhetorical question. We must ask ourselves a crucial question. At what cost?
There is the Trojan horse.
Yes.
They validate the opponent, they lower the opponent's defenses, and then immediately plant a question inside the listener's brain. They force the listener to start scanning their own mind for negative consequences. They didn't list the costs. They asked the listener to imagine them.
It is brilliant sequencing. Now look at how they follow up that short, punchy question with a massive, emotionally resonant follow-up question. Let's hear the next sentence.
Is the illusion of being one's own boss worth the reality of financial instability and the erosion of workers' rights that have been fought for over decades?
This is where the heavy emotional resonance and moral framing come into play. Analyze the contrast they built into this single sentence. They pit the word illusion against the word reality.
Wow, yeah.
They take the proponent's core, most emotional argument, the pride of being your own boss, and they reframe it as merely an illusion. And what do they weigh it against? They don't just say less money. They invoke the heavy historical weight of rights fought for over decades.
They are weighing a flimsy illusion against historical human rights. That's intense.
Exactly. And again, it's a rhetorical question. They aren't telling you what to think. They are forcing you to put an illusion on one side of your mental scale and human rights on the other, and asking you to balance it. It is a devastating structural trap. You cannot answer that question in favor of the illusion without feeling morally bankrupt.
It really is a trap. And then just when you think they are going purely on the attack, just when the momentum is swinging entirely to the negative, they pull back and concede again. It's wild. Listen to the final sentence of this masterclass. Admittedly, it offers a convenient solution for consumers, but we have a societal responsibility to look beyond our own convenience and consider the long-term implications for our labor force.
The mid-argument concession. Admittedly, it offers a convenient solution. This is perhaps the most empathetic move in the entire speech because it anticipates the listener's internal selfish monologue.
Right, because as a listener, I might agree about workers' rights, but a little voice in my head is saying, yeah, but I really like getting my Thai food delivered to my couch in 20 minutes.
Exactly. The speaker acknowledges that selfish reality. They name the convenience, but they immediately override it with a moral imperative, societal responsibility. They're saying, I know you like your delivery apps, I like them too, but we have to be bigger than our appetites.
So if we pull back and look at the blueprint, concession, plus a rhetorical question, plus powerful concluding thought,
The golden ratio.
the training notes tell us this is the architecture of a compelling argument, and dissecting it like this, you can really see why. It traps the opposition completely. You've already validated their best points, the flexibility and the convenience. You took their best weapons off the board. You gave them nothing to attack. And then your rhetorical questions seized the emotional and moral high ground. What is the opponent supposed to say? No, convenience is more important than historical human rights. They can't win.
And this brings us to the deeper purpose of this entire exercise. Mastering these tools isn't just about learning how to win an argument in a boardroom so you can get your way. The notes reflect that when you communicate at this level, it allows you to engage with the world in a much more profound way.
In a profound way.
Yes. When you use tactical concession and moral framing, you aren't just scoring points in a petty debate. You are elevating the standard of the discourse itself. You are forcing everyone in the room to think deeper, to acknowledge nuance, to abandon their tribal talking points, and to confront the actual messy complexities of the issue.
Which brings us back to where we started our journey today. We have mapped the architecture of advanced communication. By trading that defensive, knee-jerk fortress mentality for the tactical empathy of concession, by learning how to use verbal shock absorbers to take the heat out of a conflict, and by replacing those flat, forgettable statements with emotionally resonant rhetorical questions, you fundamentally change your role in any room you walk into. You stop merely participating in the noise and you start architecting the reality of the room.
But as we know, knowledge is most valuable when it is understood and actively applied. You cannot learn to play chess just by reading a book about it. You have to sit at the board. The challenge embedded in all of this material is to take these tools out of the realm of theory and put them into practice.
And that is exactly what I want you, the listener, to do. The next time you find yourself in a debate, whether you are fighting for a massive budget shift in a corporate boardroom or just debating a controversial topic with your uncle at a family dinner, I want you to resist the overwhelming urge to just violently reject whatever the other person is saying. Try playing chess instead of tennis.
Yield a little ground.
Exactly. Throw out an admittedly or an I take your point. Let the shock absorber take the hit. Watch their body language, and then follow it up with a carefully crafted, beautifully camouflaged rhetorical question, and just watch what happens. Watch how the energy in the room shifts. Watch how people's defenses drop when you validate them, and watch how their eyes change when your question forces their brain to do the work of persuading itself.
It is a remarkable transformation to witness firsthand. It changes hostility into true collaboration.
It really does. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've unpacked today. We have just spent a lot of time learning how to flawlessly concede and how to deploy questions to win an argument, to disarm an opponent, and to ultimately shape the discourse of a room. But if the ultimate goal of these advanced tools is to shape reality and persuade others, what happens when two absolute masters of this architecture debate each other?
Ooh, that's an interesting premise.
Right. If both sides are constantly validating each other's points, and both sides are expertly absorbing kinetic energy, and both sides are only asking profound, emotionally resonant questions, what is the end result? Does it eventually lead to some ultimate profound truth because both people are willingly, fearlessly exploring the gray areas together? Or does it just result in an endless, polite stalemate of perfectly balanced empathy where no one ever actually lands a blow? Are we architecting truth, or are we just building a really, really beautiful fortress of words?
That is a brilliant question.
Something for you to mull over the next time you encounter a masterful speaker.